That was Lester Young and his orchestra with Linger a While. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you do linger a while to encounter the very special evening we have planned out for you. Taking time off from her ever-busy schedule as the Queen of Burlesque and speaking to you live from the Princess Grace Suite at the Waldorf Astoria, the one and only Miss Angie Pontani.
Hello, dear listeners, and thank you for joining me in the Pontani Pages. One of my favorite things about doing this program is getting to share with you some of the things that make my New York so special. And one of those things, well, a person actually, is Don Spiro. I've known Don for close to a decade now, and whether he's out capturing the stars of burlesque with his stunning photography or co-hosting Wits End, a cabaret and dance event celebrating the glamour of the jazz age, Don is always a gentleman and always dressed like a gentleman. He's a real 1940s man, and I mean that in the best possible way. I was also privileged to know Don's late beloved Diane Naegel, who passed away last autumn at the age of 31. Diane was a true gem of the New York style scene, and as evidence from the hordes who turned out for her funeral and memorial service, she touched many, many lives with her contributions to New York nightlife, literary life, and by the example of her courageous fight against breast cancer. Diane founded Wits End and was also the founder and publisher of Zelda, a biannual journal that celebrated classic Hollywood glamour and the revival of that glamour in the contemporary age, or which she called the Vintage Nouveau. After she died, Don decided to continue with Zelda and has since brought out 2 new issues. I am so pleased Don was able to join us on this evening's program to talk about oh so many things. Don, welcome to the Pontani Pages.
Hey, Angie, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, it's been, about a decade. I've known you since you were a teenager.
7. If it was 12 years ago, I must have been 7.
Exactly, yes.
Well, Don, I'm so excited that you are here, and I want to talk a little bit about you and Diane. How did you guys first meet and connect?
Well, we'd run into each other a few times at different places, and from going to the different clubs where our mutual friend Jen Minsky was, I got to know her, I got to know all her friends, and we just started hanging out. And sometimes we would just hang out where it would just be us, and we'd end up talking and got to know her better. She lived in the Lower East Side at the time, so we would hang out at Manitoba's, which is around the corner from her, and we just became involved that way. It was really an organic progression. We never really went on a date or anything. There's no definitive, anniversary or anything that you can say, oh, this is when it all started. No, it just was very slowly and just kind of happened.
I imagine you guys had a lot in common, and you discovered that pretty early, and that probably gave you a great basis for developing your relationship.
Oh, absolutely. I was interested in, just about everything, I would say, and so was she. She had grown up. Her dad really loves old movies, and she'd sit and watch old movies with her dad, and she was just naturally into the 20s and jazz age flapper stuff. She had the Louise Brooks haircut. She was in Louise Brooks, and when you're in a community like that, when you get to have that kind of interest, you meet people with similar interests, and then it expands. You get more and more interest in different things. She was always interested in fashion. She was actually a fashion designer. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, Oshkosh B'gosh.
She was
right?
The designer for the accessories. She was the head of the department designing accessories. So if there's any kids out there that have backpacks or shoes or scarves or hats or gloves, she designed them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And well-rounded,
I don't know how she had the time, really, to do any of these things. She had her full-time job. Then she did Zelda Magazine. Then she, did Wits End, and also had a social life. It's been a little tough trying to keep my own job, my own career going, while I'm doing Zelda and Wits End. Fortunately, there's also Kevin Fitzpatrick from the Dorothy Parker Society, who's been a huge help, taking over a lot of the procedural aspects and the managing of Wits End, just like Jen Minsky's really helping out with Zelda. So we felt it was important to keep both of those things going, after Diane passed, kind of in tribute to her, but also because Diane did help build this community, and now this community exists, and wants these things.
Absolutely.
It's for the reason they started. There was no club like Wits End before. There is still no club like it on a regular basis, at least not in Manhattan. There's plenty of Jazz Age stuff to go to, but it's sporadic.
Yes.
Nothing regular. And same with the magazine. So we like to just keep it going, keep plugging along. I'd like to just, keep it going on forever because it's also fun to do.
Well, and there's certainly a need for it. And it's like you said, I mean, Diane really helped to establish this culture as something where there's events happening regularly and it's a community, but it's not an insular community. Everyone's welcomed. It's a really friendly, fabulous thing. So the magazine and the night both really need to exist because they need to. People want to read the magazine and they want to go to Wits End.
Thinking about Teaserama, the first one where it brought together for the first time all these burlesque people from all over the country that are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Other people are doing it. It's the same thing with Zelda and the same thing with Wits End, where there are these little different communities around that are interested in certain things. So there's a lot of people who like the vintage clothing aspects.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who like the cocktail culture, a lot of people who like the dancing, a lot of people who like live jazz. And this brings them all together where they can go, oh, you're also into this, and you're into that, and here's what I'm into. And it kind of cross-pollinates and builds a larger community. So a lot of people can find out, oh, I didn't realize other people were into it. This is so great. I hear that a lot.
Absolutely. And it's kind of what you said before, that Diane's spark for the past and history and fashion of the 20s and the 30s, that was probably ignited by watching these old films with her father, but fed by meeting people who had similar interests. And I think that that's an important reason why these nights and these magazines and things like this need to happen, because we might all be inspired by something, but you need that inspiration to kind of be fed. And with those communities there to help that, we all make New York a cooler place.
I think
and
so.
the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first time that I saw the Pontani sisters in New York City. A little quick trivia bit. You were at Marion's, which is where we had the first few months of Wits End before we moved over to Flute Midtown. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic, because this is something that is happening today, but seeing a burlesque floor show, it kind of, put me back in this I don't know if it's exactly nostalgic time, but it was just fantastic to see that somebody was still doing something so great. I'm into things that are of good quality, things that I can appreciate, especially with art, no matter what genre it is. I have friends who are like, I like this thing because it's new, as opposed to something somebody else did. I'm always looking for, what's new. And I'm always looking just for what's good.
Yeah.
I have friends who don't like watching black and white movies because of that. And I love black and white movies.
I could watch black and white movies for days. And they make you feel cozy. I feel cozy when I watch a black and white movie.
And I'm not saying there's no bad black and white movies. There's good and bad of everything. And that's what I'm trying to say is, as long as it's good, let's keep going with it. There's so much great music there that people are doing from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that you can go to, and modern music today. But there's also great music from the 20s and 30s, and people weren't being exposed to that, and I think they should be.
And how did Zelda come about? Was Diane working on that already, or was it in progress? It seems like such a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I don't know how she did it. Nobody really had a magazine like Zelda that was about this culture that we were really into. And we kept trying to find similar things. And just like Wits End, it was the kind of club that we wanted to go to, but nobody else was doing it, so we figured we'll start it on our own. Diane was looking for this culture magazine that really represented all the aspects of the Jazz Age, both then and now. So she just started, and she started as a biannual. And actually, I should give a little bit of kudos to Bachelor Pad magazine.
Oh, yeah. Java's Bachelor Pad
yes.
magazine, which is another alternative kind of, but he's more...
It's a pinup magazine. Yeah. It's like a retro, mid-century magazine for the times today. But that was inspiring as to a lot of the practical aspects. One of the reasons why she decided to do it as a smaller format magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's... It's a biannual. It comes out twice a year. There's a spring, summer, and then there's also a fall, winter, which is enough work on its own just getting that stuff
I
out.
can't even imagine, because if I had to make a magazine, I would, staple paper together that I got photocopied at Kinko's. But Zelda is beautiful, and it's
Thank you.
always been beautiful. So that's kind of amazing to me. And the whole jazz age theme, which Diane was totally ahead of her time with that as well, being inspired by that. It was kind of, everybody was into the 50s and everything, and burlesque and yada, yada, yada. But she kind of took it a step back, a couple of decades back. And was she always into that? How did that come about?
She was always into the 20s and 30s. Actually, she was also into everything.
Yeah, which
all styles, actually.
She had such good taste, man.
Oh, she really did. As far as her personal wardrobe and things, she really liked the 20s, although she had more of like a 40s body that she would try to hide. She actually, if you see any of the old pinup stuff she did, she had like a bombshell body, but she liked dressing like a flapper. And she was up to date on everything. I was surprised at how much she knew about music today. She was really into hip hop, and she'd been into all the Riot Girl stuff.
Really well-rounded.
Oh, she was really well. She knew more about modern music than I do, and I always thought that I knew quite a bit about things in the past, but I would talk about something from back in the day, and she knew more about it than I did.
That's amazing.
Which was, I couldn't believe it. She really knew what she was talking about.
Well, you
she
can
liked
tell she
researching.
loved it. And how about like all the contributors you guys have? Like, is that from your pool of friends, or like have you brought this community together in a sense? I think so.
It's a bit both. Yeah, it started out as a pool of friends and people who were in the jazz age community. I mean, Diane belonged to the Ziegfeld Club. She belonged to the Art Deco Society in New York. I do now. I still belong to the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles. So we've got a big group of friends who are into this kind of thing. And then after starting Wits End, we got to meet more and more, and going to the Jazz Age lawn party and things like that. It's been fantastic. And our friends have really come together and helped us. It's a volunteer thing, really. It's not necessarily to made to turn a profit. It's more to build a community and get more people interested in this kind of thing. We have a lot of friends who are in jazz age bands, and a lot of people around the country who do research and artwork and filmmaking and things like that. And rather than, I say this with Wits End, rather than competing for a small group of people to come to your event or your club or to help you out with whatever, it's nice to build a larger community. So we all have lines out the door, so everybody is coming to see you. And I prefer collaboration to competition. I think it actually makes more artistic things.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it makes, and when you have your peers working alongside of you, it keeps you extra on your toes too, I think, because everybody wants to have the best product possible. And I think with Zelda too, you guys are also like, this is the past, and the past moves on and people forget, and my nieces don't know what a pin curl is. Mm-hmm. And they see this and they think this is like the most amazing thing in the world. And it's so exciting to them, and I think that's important because it's like you're helping history to live on and on forever, and also helping people to dress better and have better hair and listen to better music. Was it a conscious decision after Diane passed away? Were you initially thinking, no, I'm not going to continue with Zelda, or no, I'm not going to do Wits End? And was everybody else like, Don, you have to? What was the process for you?
That was pretty much it,
it's actually. It's a tough decision.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I would be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point that I was not really in any state to make any major decisions. I made the decision not to make any life-changing decisions at the time because there was so much stuff going on, so much to go through. And she'd been midway through putting together issue 5. It was pretty much done. We had to do the finishing touches and do a little editing. And we thought, well, we'll put it out as a tribute to her. And there actually is a tribute in there for her. And Jen and I and her friends found out, okay, we actually could do this. So all we're doing is really following her format.
Yes.
It's pretty easy. And felt that as long as we follow the format that she established, we can keep doing it. And when we were putting together issue 5, we got some extra things that we thought, okay, maybe we can start in issue 6 now that we know how to do it. And issue 6 will be coming out in April, and we have enough things now that we can keep going forward with issues 7 and 8. And it was the same thing with Wits End. Diane passed away in September, the night right after a Wits End, and Halloween was always our big holiday. And the band had been booked, the venue had been booked, and I thought that would be a great tribute for her.
Yes.
So we did the Halloween Wits End. We always take off November and December anyway. That's Thanksgiving and Christmas, so nobody'd come. So this will be the last one of the year. We'll make it a big event, and it was fun. And the venue wanted us to continue. Our friends wanted us to continue. I wasn't sure because I actually had a job in Los Angeles in January, but the Dorothy Parker Society took over and ran with it, did a great job. So then when I came back in February, it was almost like, I never left. It was just fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to just keep going with that too.
I'm glad to hear it because
Thanks.
It's a fabulous party, and it should continue on. And it's just a great thing. It honors Diane's memory, and everybody is getting together and continuing to live this hot jazz style, and it's fantastic. So when somebody walks into Wits End, what can they expect to see when they go to this night?
Well,
An experience, just from the minute you walk in the door.
It's a whole atmosphere, I would say. First, you have the live music. If you're there when the band is playing, it's live hot jazz, which is great, which means people can dance, and people are dancing, and they're dancing all the old steps. And people are dressed up. They're not necessarily vintage. There's plenty of people there just in jackets and ties that are modern, or dresses that are modern, which is fine because I prefer that than somebody renting a gangster costume at a Halloween store. I don't want that. I don't want the cheesy tinsel or cheap feather boas. I'd rather have somebody in a nice dress, if not vintage. Although there are plenty of people who do dress up in vintage. So when you come back to Wits End, not only do you see this and you feel like you're in the environment. It actually used to be a speakeasy, Texas Guidance Club and Team back in the day. And you also become part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's part of the experience. It's not like you're going to an amusement park version of, this is a vintage nightclub. Like, you are experiencing this. It's something very authentic.
If you're wearing like a T-shirt with a rock band on it, you can go to any other club, and I often do. But for this club, if you do, you'd be out of place. Just like if you walked into this club and you saw somebody wearing a T-shirt or a baseball cap, it would throw you out of the experience. So that's why I say you are part of the atmosphere when you come. It feels really good that it's gotten the word out there, and we've gotten requests from bands all over the country to come play our club. It's kind of neat.
That's awesome. I can't wait for the next one. I'll be there.
Very good. I can't wait. Last Saturday every month.
All right. Perfect. So, Don, you grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Yes, I did.
I don't think vintage Mecca. What inspired you to love the past and embody it in your life?
I would definitely say it was the time period that I grew up, which was the 70s, and the kind of parents I had, where Saturday afternoon meant watching old films on TV. You had the horror movies. You would see all the horror movies. Then you'd have the comedies, Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy and stuff like that, and all the old classic films. And if you wanted to find something special, like I was really into 1933 King Kong, which fortunately they played every Thanksgiving. But if you were into like Casablanca or something, you would go through the TV guide and you would mark down the films you wanted to see. My parents also were really into giving me experiences and expanding my horizons. So there were a lot of local colleges that would show art films, and my dad was also really into Chaplin. So we'd go to see Chaplin films and Keaton films at the local colleges, long before a video and stuff like that. I'm also from a kind of a big family, so there's like a kid born every year. Yeah. So there's no generation gap. So we would go to family reunions and parties, and you'd hear every kind of music. And it wasn't until, I was a little older and able to appreciate it that I realized that the music was from different time periods. I grew up with, Jolson, and I grew up with Elvis and
Oh, it's such a
Sinatra
gift.
and all that stuff, mixed in with Alice Cooper and Kiss and the Clash, things like that.
That's amazing. That's a nice way to be nice and well-rounded. And what about photography? Was there a photographer in your family, or was that something that you were drawn to?
Yeah, the photographer was me, actually. Yeah,
At a young age?
At a young age, I was like being behind the camera. I was really inspired by King Kong, actually.
I love King Kong.
It's my all-time favorite
I cry
movie.
my eyes out in
Awesome.
King Kong.
Oh, I love Angie. Fantastic.
So misunderstood.
So it inspired me to, grab my dad's Super 8 camera and make little films when I was like 6, 7 years old. And I would take some pictures with my parents' cameras, and then my dad bought a Nikon, an F series. It's an old 35mm Nikon in the late 70s, and I pretty much commandeered it and became the family photographer. Since I was a little kid, and always loved taking pictures. It was always a hobby. And then when I went to college, I majored in filmmaking and took some courses in still photography, and have always been doing it, ever since. And that became my profession.
That's a pretty wonderful profession. And I think you probably, more than anybody else in the world, have the most complete collection of burlesque performers from the beginning of the revival in the mid-90s to now. I can't imagine that anyone else's collection comes anywhere near yours. I mean, you've shot everyone at live events and in the studio.
I'm going to actually have, I like being modest and self-deprecating stuff,
Oh,
but no, I'm
come
going to
on.
give you that just because,
it's true?
Because it's true, because when I started doing it, there were very few people who were doing it. It was also very expensive. We were all shooting on film for the first couple of years of shooting burlesque. And I got very lucky being involved with the Velvet Hammer in Los Angeles. They're one of the first, if not the first, burlesque revival troupe. People started calling it New Burlesque later. Back then, they thought they were just continuing the traditions.
Oh, yeah.
They were still doing burlesque. And then followed them to New Orleans for the first Teaserama. I went out with Augusta, who I was with at the time.
I was there. I
Jr.
saw you there. I think that's probably
It's
when
my
we
first pictures
met.
of you.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I owe you some of those pictures.
Yes. And what year was that? That was
2001.
2001?
That was 2001. And that's when I realized how big it was. And
I think we all did. I think we all thought we were operating in our own little cities, doing our burlesque shows, and we didn't realize how many of us were out there all across the country. And that's why that first Teaserama was so amazing and eye-opening for all of us to see that.
yeah, that's why I'm planning on going actually to the next one. They're doing another one this year. And I got lucky. I planned to originally just shoot the Velvet Hammer. But I was there and I saw all these people, and I shot most of the performances there. Even people I didn't know who they were, and a few of them, they've come and gone, but a lot of them were like you.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen you before, and except the first time I saw you was when I was taking pictures of you at Teaserama. I knew the Velvet Hammer, I knew Dita, and everybody else I was pretty much meeting for the first time. I met Tigger there for the first time also.
I think I did too. It's the first time that I met so many of those folks.
yeah.
Even the ones from New York. I mean, we're all in New York, but it's a big city.
What was great about that is because of Miss Astrid,
Yes.
who was bi-coastal. She had the Velvet Room in New York, and she'd been with the Velvet Hammer in LA. When the Velvet Hammer and the Velvet Room were on stage in New Orleans at the first Teaserama, it was a combined show where they would Miss Astrid would host, and they'd have a Velvet Hammer girl, then a Velvet Room girl, and go back and forth. So that's how I got to meet World Famous Bob and Juliet Asmudes and Dirty Martini. And then the next big Velvet Hammer show, which was in Los Angeles that November, they flew the New York girls out.
I remember.
Yeah, so that was my first real bi-coastal bonding experience, and it's just branched out ever since. And the community's so great. I got to give it to, Baby Doe and Allison for starting that news group and stuff, that I can you know how it is. You can go anywhere in the country and there's somebody
you
know, and you can always like crash on a couch or take somebody to dinner or drinks or something
Burlesque
like that.
has created a kind of a whole, inner tube of burlesque
Yes, exactly.
all around the world, and you could just get on and ride that, and you'll know somebody everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
So in your pictures, I know, you're inspired by the past, and your pictures often reflect so much of the past, but they're also contemporary too, and you work a lot in color too.
Yes.
So again, it kind of reminds me of Wit's End, where you're not kind of creating this theme park reenactment. You're not going to Great Adventure and putting on some weird Western outfit and getting in there and taking this corny picture. You're actually recreating it, but you have modern spins on it too. Does that just come from your brain, or is there, some inspiration for that?
Well, I would say it's because I'm inspired by the past. But to be honest with you, I'm a 21st century photographer. I'm sitting here in a state of the art room doing this broadcast, and it's the same way for me when it comes to photography. The same way when we wouldn't be able to do Zelda Magazine 20 years ago. We can do it now because we can go online and do a lot of research. The same with Wit's End. We can play music from the 20s and 30s through a laptop or anything.
Evolution.
Is great. Yeah. So I think my work is completely modern. Up to date, contemporary. Well, the goal would be cutting edge, actually.
Yeah.
But with inspiration, with that taste of all the things that have come before and inspired me, because I've been inspired by just about everything. I've gotten certain photographers that I really like and certain painters.
Who do you like? Do you go back to them for inspiration?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on, it depends on what kind of photo I'm doing. I would say when it comes to like the burlesque and entertainment stuff, my favorites were Edward Steichen and George Hurrell.
I love George Hurrell.
Yeah, George Hurrell's fantastic. And I'm from a filmmaking background. And we will be working on a high-key comedy for 1 month, and then I'll get a dramatic cop TV series for a year, and then I'll be on a sci-fi thing. So you have to be able to do every kind of style, whatever tells the story. Sometimes it might be a film noir, and sometimes it might be something completely opposite. So when it comes to taking pictures, that's how I approach the pictures. What is this for? What kind of story do I want to tell? Or who's the client? How is this going to be shown? Is it for a poster? Is it for a magazine? Is it somebody's personal project? My style is pretty much to have no style other than what best tells the story. So I draw on all these tools. So that's why I like looking at different things. And that's one of the reasons why, for glamour, Hurrell is it for me.
Yeah.
For just about everything else, there's Steichen, because I think he kind of invented all the other techniques, everything else that I use. But there's little bits here and there, all through the way. Documentary photographers, documentary films that I like, they all influence that kind of stuff. I really love Belloc, all his New Orleans Storyville stuff really speaks to me. And I loved it, but it didn't really speak to me until I went to California, where I was surrounded by a lot of new stuff. And I don't know if you've seen the Storyville pictures or all the brothel pictures
No,
from
I
New
haven't,
Orleans
but I'm
in
going to.
1914. Oh, it's fantastic stuff. And you've seen it. You just
I
might
just
not
don't know.
And so many people have been inspired by it. And I was looking at it, and it's like, I've seen so many, French postcards, erotic postcards, stuff like that, as interesting as the women were in the pictures, there was stuff in the backgrounds that reminded me of my grandmother's old parlor and the old rugs and the curtains and things like that. It's like, wow, living in LA, at least where I was living at the time, was very modern building. It's like, wow, I want to go take pictures like that because nobody's doing anything like that. So that's, I'm inspired by everything.
Yeah, well, that's good, and you can see it. And also, I think your photographs bring out the subject that you're photographing, too. Some photographers can be overpowering to work with, and I feel like, and from shooting with you, too, I know this for a fact, that, I feel very comfortable, and I can see that in the pictures that you take of the other performers and other girls, and I think that really separates your work as well, because it's got a real human touch to
thank
it.
you. I like
True.
to shoot with my friends, and that actually helps. If I'm shooting with somebody who I haven't met before, I like to meet them before we do the shoot. And most of my shoots are like long-term things. Like I've shot with you many times.
Yeah.
And if I shoot with somebody for the first time, yes, I'm trying to get good pictures that they would want, that I would be proud to put my name on, but I'm also treating it as a test for the next shoot. And I'm always treating each shoot as a test for the next shoot. What lighting works, what angles work, what poses work, makeup, hair, everything. For the next shoot, so it keeps getting better and better, and that way it's easy to shoot better pictures when you have somebody that you have a connection with. And when you were talking about doing Zelda and Wits End and everything, having a community helping you, it also helps, and you know this from burlesque, it helps when the people in your community are actually the best at what they do.
Oh,
it's not just
absolutely.
a big community, but you're also working with people who are professionals and who really know what they're doing.
Absolutely. No, you're totally correct. So when's your big book of burlesque pictures of every burlesque performer on planet Earth coming out?
I've been thinking about
You have to do this, Don.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you want to come over and edit, because that's part of the problem, is that as soon as I start getting a handle on it, suddenly there's more and more and more.
I'm sure you must have millions of pictures at home on like discs to the ceiling.
Pretty much. I used to. Now I've been transferring them all to my hard drives and backing them all up because I'm getting rid of the discs. And I did a lot of that in LA.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about a number of books. I've been thinking about burlesque. If I can get an intern or assistant or somebody wants to come over and help me do this, because I've got that. I've got my personal projects. And people have been bugging me about a burlesque book and also a Mexican wrestling book, because I've been shooting the
because you did Lucha Vavoom from the beginning. You were
from
shooting
the beginning,
that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, I think you've got a pretty valuable photo library, and one day this is going to be an important part of history. So
someday, yeah.
So if there's an intern out there, you need to email Don. Well, Don, thank you so much for joining us in the Pontani Pages, and it's been such a pleasure having you here, and I cannot wait to see the next issue of Zelda, and I can't wait to dance at the next Wits End. Some of Don's work can be found online at www.donspiro.com, and Zelda can be found at zeldamag.com. We'll have links to both on our page, which you can find by visiting me at angiepontani.com or by going straight to pontanipages.wordpress.com, where you can also leave a suggestion, question, or just an effusive compliment. Thank you for listening, Don. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much, Angie.
All right. Take care out there, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the Pontani Pages.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being the kind podcasting audience that makes our task so much easier and our burdens so much lighter. Join Miss Pontani next time for more of the best of New York City and beyond.